All right. Hello and welcome to the Wikibrands Signals webcast number 1 in November. My name is Doyle Buehler, and I'm here with Sean Moffitt, the one and only. How's it
Hi,
going,
Doyle.
Sean?
Hey,
Cool.
we
So,
just did another one of these webcasts this morning, so I'm looking forward to just me and you
yeah,
hanging out together today.
yeah, exactly. We just got off the air from another webcast that we are doing on scale and growth, which is fascinating. We're going to actually talk about that in a little bit. So, Signals. What is Signals, Sean?
I just thought every month we should probably, and this is great because it's November 1st, conveniently enough, that we kind of look at the month ahead. We explore some of the stuff that's happening out there in the world at large and provide some kind of take on it. And then also look at what's going on inside Wikibrands because we have so much activity right now. Part of it is just to provide some thought leadership, but part of it is for our listeners to actually go, you know what, I really would love to be involved in what they're doing here. How do we get involved? Because we're quite collaborative.
Yeah, exactly, and that's part of it too. And that's what's sort of one of the recent projects has been the Wikibrands Collective, which you've basically pulled together a bunch of people from around the world who are, dealing with scale and transformation and digitalization and all those other fancy words. Tell us a little bit about that, Sean.
Yeah, it's great when you get into something, then you start talking to people that feel the same way and that have the same interest. And so Wikibrands is now a collective. We've taken an approach that the world is
Yeah,
decentralizing. We're all becoming independent, wonderful, amazing people. Why not bring those people together and actually upset the apple cart of the professional services game? I've always been of the mind that, consultancies, agencies, software companies, they all have their place. But if I look at the
mhm,
70 people we pulled together in this collective, I will put five of any of my 70 people in this collective against five of your Deloitte people or Publicis people or Sapient people, and I will
yeah,
win. I think we're amazing. And part of my ethos as an entrepreneur is if somebody's willing to actually have their livelihood put on the line because they believe in whatever they do as a subject matter expert, then they're likely probably going to be better than somebody that is working inside of big business. They just are based on instincts and survival. So that's what we've built together here, and it's really exciting to see it come together.
yeah, absolutely. And I'm sort of a newer entrant to the collective in the last couple of months, and the amazing people that are part of this is just fascinating. I mean, they're from around the world. They're not just specific to one specific city, although a lot of you are from Toronto. But I'm joining in from Australia. There's people in Montreal. There's people in Vancouver and San Francisco. Where are some of the other places that people are joining in from?
Yeah, we're starting to build out Europe, and you're right to say we started with Canada. I've done a couple of different renditions of doing professional services across borders, and this time I thought sensibly we'll go with where we're located and who we know, and then extend out gradually
Yeah.
from there. So you're my Australia contingent over here, but I expect that Anzac will be quite healthy over the next 6 months. Europe,
Yeah.
UK. Silicon
Yeah.
Valley, parts of the US we're expanding to too. So, by the start of next year, we'll be probably in 8 geographic pockets. But as you well know, Doyle, I mean, you're currently in Australia
That's
today.
a
I'm
big
in
pocket.
Toronto. We're 12 hours difference, but we're
Mhm.
able to do work much like we're in the same office. So
Yeah.
I
Isn't
don't
that
see,
cool?
yeah.
I love that. Like that is the most amazing thing about the world and technology and the interwebs and people even is being
This
able
would
to
be
do that.
impossible 10 years ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It was almost impossible last week with the tech. No, just kidding.
Nice.
So what's the ultimate goal of the collective then, the Wikibrands Collective?
So we tend to get involved in a whole bunch of different projects, but I mean, I guess the key lens is we are all about two things. Transformation, we can help fix, change your business, transform yourself from the inside out. And future proofing will help anticipate what's going on with your marketplace and actually, look at some of the early warning signs and hopefully get you to change before you actually are faced with some kind of crisis moment. So we've got 70
Super.
people. They're all great at what they do. And we'll be mixed with a different set of keynotes and labs and workshops, which is kind of like the we're in and we're out in a course of a day or a couple of weeks. Then we'll get into other projects that are probably special projects in nature, where we're consultants or research or thought leadership or what have you. And then there'll probably be another group where it's like we are truly in 3 to 18-month engagements of being your substitute CXO or some type of consulting project where we're probably taking a leadership role.
Yeah, awesome. But they're all not as ridiculously good looking as yourself, though, Sean. I heard.
Are we having a bromance here? Should I be concerned?
Trying not. All right. So we've done 2 webcasts in the last couple of weeks. So the first one was the Wikibrands Collective webcast #1 on transformation. And we're talking about some of the structures, some of the strategies. What could you take from that first webcast, rather?
Well, we're going to pump our own tires here because I think you've expertly stick-handled through a whole bunch of different guests that some of them are meeting each other for the first time. So I think you, as our host, our gracious host, is being able to pull those people together. I think now that we've done 2 webcasts, I think you'll find just what I've seen originally, like just really intelligent people, passionate about what they do, and with a real conviction from years of experience of having worked in something about different issues or another. I don't think we always agree on things, which is great. I think there is a common value of we're thinking about the future, we're thinking speed is important, technology is important. But if we all agreed, like, what kind of group is that? Like, I think that's what a lot of corporations do. There's just way too much groupthink where everybody nods heads to each other. So I think in that first webcast, Andrew and myself, Fareed, we all had a different lens on what was going on. But if for no other reason why you want to spend 20 minutes with us, you just see the passion and enthusiasm leak through your screen in terms of passion about the subject of transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the first webcast we did was transformation. We've done scale and growth as well. What other topics have we kind of got lined up down the road coming?
Yeah, it's tough to keep sorted, but we've got one called Reinvent, which is about brands and culture. So we'll probably alternate the theme of that. One time it'll be about brands and customers. The other time will be talent and culture. We've got one called Digitalized, which is all about how do you take these emergent technologies and implement them in your world sensibly, smoothly.
Yeah.
And then finally, we have Future Proof. So how do we anticipate the trends that are going to hit you tomorrow? And I got some really cool guests that we can have on those future shows. Like I've had a couple of conversations this week that are just blow your mind kind of stuff in terms of how we can better anticipate your future.
Looking forward to it. And then the last one actually is the Signals one, which is going to be a regular show coming up where we're going to highlight some of the key transformation strategies, some of the things going on in the marketplace, in the industries, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, hopefully this becomes a kind of a regular session. There used to be an old webcast called Rocket Boom. I don't know if you remember it, Doyle, but it was just like a quick hitter kind of, here's the universe at large. Let's go around the world and do 30 seconds on each one of these things. And hopefully the Signals thing that we're doing today becomes where it's just like around the mill, kind of like, let's not go deep, but let's go ankle wide on a few other subjects and give some stuff for people to think about.
Perfect. Excellent. So we've reached 70 people. Wikibrands itself does a lot of research. What's coming up with that?
Yeah, it's almost like a funnel coming in, because we've got research that's come back and now we're actually processing it. We've got research that's going out and now we're going out into field in November with a couple things. So I'll highlight 3 of them. One, myself and one of the members of our group, Barry Hillier, have done kind of above and beyond the call, I think, in terms of trying to understand startup innovation ecosystems. So as an entrepreneur, you go out to the world at large trying to launch your idea, and you're met with all this type of resistance and challenges in terms of capital and talent and what have you. And as somebody that has a real stake in that, how do we manage that ecosystem well? And so from a Toronto standpoint, I think Toronto's reputation around the world has really gone up in the last 5 to 10 years in terms of being a hub for entrepreneurialism. We're probably at least top 10 in the world. And so we're trying to identify different parts of the DNA that's making that work and making sure that here and in other places we can actually repackage that and go, look, if you're starting up an ecosystem for startups, here's what you essentially need. So that's what we've finished as research. We've done 50 interviews, 250 people have surveyed, and we're getting those results and kind of pulling together in the report. The two pieces of research that are just about to go out, one's going to be focused on business model reinvention. Corporations, let's be honest, we're not really good at the innovation game. And there's a variety of different reasons. I'm not castigating blame on anybody, but we are trying to figure out the people that are doing it best, how are they doing it, and what can we learn from them? So that's one area. And then we just had a scale and growth podcast or webcast earlier today. The other piece of research is going to be totally focused on those kind of in-between companies that are not quite startups. They're past that phase, and they're not quite corporates yet. They're in that middle high growth phase, but there's a whole bunch of things going on inside their operations, good and bad, in terms of getting to the next stage. Because the tragedy is less than 10% of scale-ups ever make it to become a corporation big enough to actually kind of have all these resources. So there's a lot of failure that's happening. We're trying to figure out why that is.
Worldwide, or is that Canada or other specific nations, or pretty just much in general?
The first very Canadian focus, but the last two pieces I just mentioned on business model reinvention and scale, they're going to be a global focus in terms of the study.
Okay, excellent, cool. And Wikibrands goes actually a ways back. So you've been doing like a lot of stats and a lot of keynotes and a lot of workshops and that sort of thing. What's going on with those things, Sean?
Yeah, it's amazing. So I asked every member of our collective to suggest what types of presentations that they're comfortable doing, or what did they like to be involved in, and looked at my old bag of tricks as well. I've tumbled up to 120 keynotes that if somebody phoned us today, we have a birth of 120 keynotes across this full gamut of transformation and future proofing. So anything from, I was just looking at it today, like, we've got a keynote and briefing on the future of sport. We call it Digiball. So a lot of people are sports fans. That's just generally interesting, to very surgical, kind of clinical, like big data for business decision makers, where we talk about big analytics that can't fit in your Excel sheet. How does that change the landscape of business? And not from a technical end, but more from you're a CEO, you're a CIO, you don't understand all of what's going on here, but how can you reasonably use it in your company? So there's a massive range of keynotes. We could lay claim to the fact that we have the biggest bank of information that people can speak about on transformation than anywhere else in the world, which I'm proud of.
And I've sort of flipped through them around the web, and from ones that we've talked about, and the level of detail is just honestly, every time I see them, like, my mind goes, wow. I
know that's the challenge of this game, though, right? Like, I think to be candid with you, it's like transformation is such a big pie.
It is. Yeah.
How do you make sure that
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, how do you make sure you curate that well enough that people don't go, oh, it's too big, I can't think about it. I'm only in my role for the next 2 years. Can I avoid doing it? My hope.
Yeah, well, that's where they pick up the phone and go, hey, Wikibrands Collective, we need your help. SOS.
I know. But I think people don't want disruption. They want simplicity, right? Like, we resist change in the future, most of us. We're weird guys. We embrace it. But, everybody talks disruption. It's important to have a trigger to change. So disruption might be the good thing. But you want people that have actually done this before and actually go, look, we've done it before. I've been in your seat before. This is not as bad as you think. And let's work together on this. And I think to a person in our collective, that's the type of person we're bringing in.
Yeah. And to get businesses beyond that 10% of successes, that's disappointing, but let's do something about it, Sean. So what else is going on around the world of transformation?
Well, I thought we just, let's talk about just things that aren't going on inside Wikibrands for a moment, and just talk about a few of the industry headlines that I ran across today. I'll be interested in your kind of reaction to them as well. First one for me that was interesting, I've geeked out on blockchain over the last year. I saw there was the 10th anniversary of the Satoshi white paper that was written to talk about Bitcoin. And this is so interesting because it's been 10 years. Usually you figure out after 10 years who was behind this thing,
Yeah.
what's his story. We still don't know who Satoshi is, which
Yeah.
I
So
find so incredibly cool.
yeah, it's cool, but I don't know. Maybe they just made him up. Because I've heard some theories where it's different people put together, different names and different personas. I don't know, because most things you can't keep a secret for that long. Like, let's be honest, humans like to talk.
I know, which is
So
impressive.
10 years, I don't know.
I mean, I think the bigger story is like banks and governments were not the friend of Bitcoin and blockchain to begin with. And despite all of the institutional resistance, you've now got a technology that, I've put it as our number 4 technology heading into the next decade. I don't know where Bitcoin's going to go, but certainly the technology behind a blockchain, I think, is here to stay. And I think, thank you, Satoshi, for giving us this gift.
Yes. Thank you. And we'll honestly, it's going to be probably a while to actually get some traction, but is there going to be another big fad like last pre-Christmas with Bitcoin, or is that kind of, have people learned their lesson?
I don't know. You know that Gartner hype cycle where it's like this law of irrationality? I think we've passed that, and now we're probably on the downslope where people are going to be disenchanted about blockchain for a while and go, what is it really? But I think we'll emerge out of it where it's just like all of a sudden we won't be carrying a passport anymore. We'll be carrying our blockchain credentials, and people will be like, when did that happen? And what caused this, right? So, so that's cool. I think warrants a mention. I think the second thing I ran across today, which is really interesting, appreciate your perspective. Upwork, which is like this gig type of on-demand marketplace for doing stuff in your life.
Economy.
They do good stuff.
It's a slightly more expensive Fiverr.
That's a great way of saying it. You know what?
Better skill too.
I mean, I've used Upwork before. I like the product, but they come out with this. I think they did it for a 5th annual report on freelancers. And I found some of their stats amazing. Get this, like I didn't have the historical perspective here. 35% of America, I think that was their the analysis of their study was America. 35% of America is now freelance. In about 6 or 7 years, it'll be half, right?
And that doesn't just mean that they don't have a job or were what's the word?
Laid off.
So
right.
These are working professional freelancers, right? That's what I was getting at.
The majority of them are freelancer by choice. And one of the stats in the study was 51% of these freelancers say, look, if a corporate job came calling, they gave me the cash I wanted, the office I wanted, the perks that I wanted, they would not go. These people are freelancers for life, that just surprised me as the stat where it's like they cannot be convinced to go back to a traditional job again. And then the other thing that I found amazing was we're at 35% now, 50% soon. The low point of freelancing was in 1977. There were only 7% of us that were freelancers in 1977. And you think about the technology challenges, just setting up your business challenges in 1977. God bless them. They must have really gone out of their way to be freelancers back then. But if you go way, way back into the 1860s, fully 80% of America was a freelancer back then. Mainly farmers, agriculture. So this is not new. It's kind of what old is new again, I guess, right?
Yeah. There wasn't even Apple or Amazon to employ millions of people.
Yeah. So that was another thing I ran across. Another thing I ran across, we're seeing all these, what's next in technology kind of things. It's November. People love to do it at this time of year. Somebody had just come up with 9 disruptive breakthroughs. I'll put the link on our webcast for later.
And we'll have, just to know, we'll have links to all these articles as well that we're going to set up. Yeah.
I think, you get the regular things that you would probably see on there, AI and augmented reality and a lot of stuff around privacy, which I think has hit the headlines this year. I found interest in stuff that I don't normally run across. And there was 3 things that I saw that were interesting to my mind. One was just these earbuds that Google has called Google Babble, where they can do real-time voice translation. So if you're talking Greek and I'm English, I can hear you in real time, which maybe we need this for Australia, Canada, like just because
Yeah,
might not get some of your colloquialisms, but
well, I ask sometimes if people are dealing with Canadians here if they need a translator. So I have my Canadian translator in my ear right now.
Nice. So all of my A's and like the way I say Trana will probably make sense to you now. Yeah. So we'll put the link on, but I just found some of the stuff that I wouldn't have put on my list of 9 to be quite interesting there. A couple other things I ran across today on my trending on Twitter was Google walkout. So there's been a lot of sexual harassment allegations and real stuff happening in Google. I think
that's happening right now then, like people are literally walking out yesterday and today, or
as we speak in Silicon Valley, and it's great. It's a Google movement of women inside Google that have said enough, right? Whether they've seen it personally or been affected by it. So I think this is a good thing. I continue to be amazed that even though we have LGBT and a whole bunch of different groups that have advanced themselves, I find women still have been stigmatized in some respects. And so it's good that women are actually standing up for their rights and saying, look, they've got a 5-point plan that they want Google to change. Their demands seem reasonable. But it does make me think, wow, Google used to be that company that, they do no evil. They used to always be known as like they are in it for the best of the web. And so in some respects, you're looking at Google almost like you did first generation tech companies and go, oh my Lord, are they the evil giant now? Now that they're so big.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how it's changed field. And then the last thing, I just saw Spotify came out with their numbers today. I think 191 million people use Spotify around the world, and 87 million of them are paying.
I'm one of those, and I really enjoy it. I've got it on my Google. So
why do you like it? Like, why do you like it versus Google Play or Apple Music?
Well, because it actually connects some of the playlists, quite honestly. Like I love, listening to different music, and you hear it in this place and that. And how do you collect it? Well, how do you collect it with Shazam. So I Shazam it, and then Spotify picks up my Shazam playlist, and then Google plays my Shazam playlist. So it's like, hey, that's easy.
Really AI at work in your house here, right? Like you've got that many things coming together. I love the brand too. I think I got into it because I was a late comer into Spotify, and I just felt like I was missing out. And now that I use it, and I buy Google Home, so I can just at a moment's notice say, I'd love to hear Vance Joy. All of a sudden it plays, right?
Exactly.
So anyway, good on Spotify. Swedish. You don't have to be in Silicon Valley. Built in Sweden. I know they're not making money yet, but they're still beating the big giants at their own game. So good on Spotify for their numbers.
And they're spending a lot of money too, so that's a good thing, right?
For somebody. It's going to be a tough one to make a good profit go at it, because even though they get more numbers, they keep losing more money because of it. So at some point, we either need to pay more or the model needs to change to them ongoing. But for now, I'd say it's all about scale and growth. Good for them.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know if they had it in Canada, but in New York last year around this time, they actually were running a really cool campaign about the playlists on Spotify, and they were actually broadcasting the name of the specific playlist on the billboards and the ads and that sort of thing out of doors. And it was really quite fascinating, because that was a story into itself. Because people, who suggested that playlist, or, it's a playlist for something very, very specific, right? So it was pretty hilarious.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's like, you just think we tend to totally underestimate the long term and overestimate the short term. Like 10 years ago, like this didn't exist, right? Like, no, if I said it did exist, but most people, for the most part, would not know what a Spotify was. And now the notion of not streaming your music, the notion of buying a CD or something is so paradoxical with how we live our lives now. It's crazy.
Yeah, no kidding. I haven't bought a CD in a decade, I think. So
yeah, I get them as presents, and I'm like, what do I do with this? What is this now? So
you put a fishing line and tie them to your rearview mirror and put them in your car.
Oh man.
Well, you got a radar evasion device. Yeah.
That was the world at large. Those are the 5 kind of links that we'll put
Awesome.
online,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
thought they're worthy of talking about. So
Yeah, no, that's good. Well, we spent a lot of time talking about it too, because I think we were planning on doing like 5 minutes, but I think it's like 25, 30 minutes.
oh my
So,
god, like we promise next time Signals 2 will be like
yeah, Signal
10
too.
minutes
Yeah.
and tight, but we have a lot of stuff to talk about. So
Yeah, absolutely. There's always exciting stuff to talk about. So cool. So let's leave it at that. Any final words you want to say, Sean?
I just have 2 very specific things in terms of Wikibrands. So one
Yeah.
is just we've got a webcast page.
Yeah, there
This
it
will
is.
become the 3rd webcast, and every 3 times a month we'll have something to talk about. Really smart people. We'd love you to come and join us and sign up as a future proofer so we can send you warning in advance in terms of when these things are being posted. So that's one thing. And 2, we've just updated our Keynotes page on Wikibrands to reflect all of this new content that's flooded in. We've come up with kind of 120 different keynotes. So if you're ever interested in a smart person to give a keynote or a training session, we have what I would like to say is the best bank of keynotes anywhere available on planet Earth. So please join us there. And just to support that, we have just posted on our SlideShare channel the 300 stats. So if you're ever looking for evidence about transformation in your own workplace and saying, how do we get this started? We've come up with 300 stats, all from the last 2 years, all focused on what's the evidence I need to go to my management or go to a team and say, look, we need to focus on transformation for these reasons. So we've come up with 300 of them. Nothing too short in our world to come up with. So jump on our SlideShare channel. We'll share that link as well.
Yeah, and you can even stop after 1 as well, but 1 helps.
The first step is always the toughest part. As a jogger,
Yeah.
I know that first step out of my house is like 90% of the battle. So
yeah, there you go. All right, cool. Well, hey, Sean, it's been an absolute pleasure. Really appreciate you joining, and thanks for everybody who's watching or listening. Please join us again next time for Wikibrands Signals webcast, and keep your eyes out for the other Wikibrands webcasts as well coming up soon. So my name's Doyle Buehler, and this is Sean Moffitt, and thank you so much for joining us.
thanks, everybody.
We'll see you online.